All right, have you gentlemen had a chance to look at the minutes from September 12th of 2023?
Yes, I have. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I have, and I'll second that motion.
Okay? Good job, Tony. All right, Tony, what do you have for us today?
First thing I handed out to you are the utilities paid in Lao,
Okay,
and the amount that was paid in Lao is $37,173.09. $37,173.09.
Motion approved.
Second.
okay, motion carries.
And next I have Eastern Alliance Workers' Comp claims. Those are in the amount of $258.83, $258.83. I like the smaller amounts.
Yeah,
Motion to
that's the
approve.
number we like to see.
Second.
All right, motion carries.
Next, we have the monthly weights and measures report submitted by Dan Hackman. I handed that out to each of you as well. And Stan, in front of you, I put a letter from the state director, just basically telling us what Dan had told us when he was here, that they have training and so many hours they have to get and so forth and so on, that Dan is actually partaking in. And that was the state just thanking you for that. So if you want to pass that letter down to the other commissioners, that's a letter you got from, what's the guy's name?
Alan Goff.
There you go.
So yeah, this is from Alan Goff, Program Director, Indiana Waste and Measure.
Basically just telling us the importance of training and so forth.
Thank you, Tony.
So I think that being said, I think Dan's fulfilling his duties both during inspections and keeping himself current in the training that's required.
Make a motion to accept this report.
Second.
Okay, motion carries.
And this is another week we have not received yet. Normally, we would receive the weekly Allied Health Insurance claims Monday late or Tuesday morning, and it has not come again. That's happened a couple times before. I don't know what's going on with it, but they'll just have to wait till next week. We emailed Allied and asked why we haven't received a monthly invoice for a couple months. So I don't know, maybe they have a turnover, but
Tony, on those weekly claims and the weekly things we talk about, one of the things that as you're aware, we've been talking about is the frequency of these meetings. And those weekly claims don't have to be paid weekly, right? So just
obviously
because
not,
they come
because we've missed a couple of weeks where they've sent it too late and it's had to wait anyway. So I don't think that would not necessarily be a problem.
And how frequently do you cut checks out of your office? Is that biweekly or how,
Or
for anything?
we don't typically cut checks.
Okay, make
It's all
payments.
ACH.
Make payments. Do you make payments just as
Bi-weekly or
needed,
monthly, probably,
Okay, bi-weekly or monthly?
I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So the only other thing that I have, and there are several ARPA requests that are not, there's only one on the agenda, but you have a few that were not put on the agenda. Actually,
you got that.
Shelley probably didn't need to actually be on the agenda because you guys were in the council meeting when council approved, I think it was four different requests that now have to be approved by the commissioners before it's a done deal, because just one body alone cannot make that happen. So I see the superintendent from South Adams is out there. I don't know if you want to make her wait until Shelley comes up later on or not, or if you want to go ahead and do the ones other than Shelley, because you have three other ones. If you want to do, if you remember, you have the surveyor truck and trailer that they took out of the commissioner's budget to use ARPA for that. That would be fairly simple if you wanted to approve that for $160,000. If you, the ones that you all approve, Julie Marie, next month at council meeting will bring resolutions to finalize that. So you would have the $160,000 surveyor truck and trailer. You have $75,000 for park and rec, which would be for vehicles and mowing equipment, things of that nature. I believe it was $80,000 for the South Adams Pickleball Court Pavilion. I'm thinking I forwarded you all that information that I had that Julie Marie had sent out. Did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay, so you have that one. And then when Shelley comes later, she will have her scanning for $500,000 that she will bring up. So if you want to do the other three and then save Shelley's for when she gets up on the agenda, that's at your discretion.
Yeah, since you're here, if you would like to come up and introduce yourself, if you would like to present your request, that'd be fine, and we can, that way we can kind of get you in and
Thanks
out
for
and
having me.
moving.
Thanks.
Yeah. So,
I'm Michelle Pelzer-Penrod. I'm the superintendent of South Adams, and I brought some things. We presented a request for a pavilion near our tennis courts, so that as we redo, for those of you that don't know, we're redoing, demolishing, and redoing all of our tennis courts. The good news we got this week was lighting was an alternate, because we had a small amount of money to use, so we did that as an alternate, and we're able to get the lights in the package, so, and what we have set aside, so we're excited about that. The one side of our courts will also have pickleball painted on them. It's been very clear from our community that they want pickleball courts. They've been coming out on Saturdays and Sundays and taping it out or chalking it out so they can play. And the thing that we've been noticing for many years about our area, it's widely used by the community, but people have to put their bags on top of their cars. They have to leave stuff in their cars and just go to the court. We even switch out our bleachers. They go to up to swimming, which we're trying to set aside some money so we can have 2 sets of bleachers, so there can be bleachers for tennis. But we do have nowhere for anybody to sit, no one to come and have benches. We don't even have benches. So we started talking with the tennis group and some pickleball group people and talked about what would make sense. And we have a pavilion, which I brought pictures of. I also have where it would be, so you guys have a little better picture of that. This is a Google Earth print. It just has a little tab about where it would go. We have a pavilion for cross country, and so people, or can we just have one of those over here? So we started looking into that. You guys, but I have plenty. That's the teacher in me. And so we had some people come out, take a look. We had the architects that we put electricity to the spot.
we can just share.
Okay. We put electricity to the spot in the tennis court project. So where the little arrow is, you can see where that will be. I have a blown up spot picture that might help you see it a little bit better. And basically, it will be a spot where people can have picnic tables, benches, water fillers, just sit and be in between. So that's the space. It will also contain a storage area for our tennis team, because if you can look at, you can see a tiny little storage in the picture that's there now. So we'd be removing that and incorporating that in, just like the pictures I'm going to show you now of the pavilion that exists for cross country.
Full disclosure, I was the tennis coach at South Adams and the school board for 10 years, but I don't vote. So.
So we feel very passionately about this being a community school. Full disclosure, again, like Tony said, we're in the middle of a big drainage project, which I know you guys are aware of, and it took me quite some time to get to the turf recommendation, to believe that was the right thing to do. My dad's a football coach, was a football coach for many years. Our high school football stadium's named after him, so grass football fields are near and dear to my heart. But after lots of communication with community folks, thinking about our campus as a K-12 campus, and thinking about how many nights, which is every, people from the community are on our campus for some reason, turf is a much better resource. That big space shouldn't be just for one sport. It should be for the first graders to go do their day of awesomeness out there, not have to worry about wetlands. And it should be a place where our kids can play little football and little soccer on it all day long and still have a football game at night. So that whole area is ours as a community. And, you know, if you've had a chance to go out, you know, or I don't know who you talk to, but my text messages blow up when they're out there taping out or chalking out their pickleball lines. So this pavilion would provide a space to make that more community friendly. Even if you're just going and sitting while you're watching somebody play, or you're walking and you're stopping, but no more putting your stuff on top of your cars and et cetera. And if the commissioners, if you decide that this isn't in the best interest, I will respect that completely, but we'll continue to work to save funds to do that. I just think any partnership we can create with the community is important, because we want to be pivotal in that South Adams community. That's important to us. So, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, I certainly appreciate the graphics that you brought to us, and that certainly explains, you know, the proposed idea and the proposed plan. One of the reservations that I have is when we approve money for pickleball courts, we've done a lot for the infrastructure that the county government is responsible for.
Yeah.
And so when I myself look at a project for the schools, you know, within their own taxing district and budget, essentially, you know, I'm kind of a little bit hesitant to step outside of
I certainly
that.
understand that.
So I guess I'd open it up for discussion here and see what Steve and Steve are thinking. I guess for that reason, I'm a little bit hesitant, I guess, because pickleball has become extremely
Right.
popular.
Right, and my board, we've talked about this a lot, with just the pickleball, you know, we've had lots of meetings when we're, you know, getting to the point. Our tennis courts, Tony can probably remember, have been on the board facilities plan for at least 15, 16 years to redo. When we did the drainage project, you know, we were committed to a tax rate. We promised a tax rate that wouldn't go over a certain amount. And so when everything fell out, we ended up with some additional capacity in that. And the first thing we said was, let's do the tennis courts. And everybody said,
Yeah.
you can't do the tennis courts with that little money. Well, don't tell us, we did, we are doing it. But we had to prioritize with our team, you know, what it was. And in the process, like I said, we had so much communication from the community about pickleball. And our board would say, well, pickleball's not an IHSAA sport. But we found out soon you can have both. They can coexist on the same spaces. So we were excited about that. And we won't be necessarily utilizing it as a school for pickleball, but we want the community to do that. And so that is why, and like I said, we are fully committed to continuing to set aside dollars to do this project, because we think it's that important. If it's not something that the commissioner feels is important. And I certainly understand that, especially in this day of our ESSER and our ARA and our, you know, we would not, our ESSER money, which is your art money, we couldn't build a pavilion. It's not in the allowable expenses to do.
Okay.
So those are, we could fudge it and call it an outdoor classroom, and hope it got by,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't do that, so,
Yeah.
so
I-
that's why.
I see the sheriff's got a comment, but I would like to hear from Steve and Steve too,
Um,
so.
Tony and I have the same background. I spent 20-some years on school board also down at Adams Central. And I think in our communities, those schools are pivotal in not only just educating our students, but in being the hub for our communities. And I understand
We
that.
want to be.
I think that's important that that perspective be upheld. And I know on my time that we felt pretty committed that those facilities were owned by the community and not owned by the school. And so I agree with that 100%. With our ARPA funds, we've got to figure out where there's a line at. And one of the
Sure.
things that I don't think we've done yet is given any money to any of the school districts. And believe me, I get the pickleball fad and the pavilion looks like it would be a great addition to your facilities. I'm just struggling getting past that, trying to figure out if we begin with 80,000 for South Adams, what does Adams Central get and what does North Adams get and what do they need to build? And everybody's got needs. And so for that reason alone, I think I'm gonna struggle with it.
And I have to agree with Steve and Stan. I'm just not comfortable with giving that money out to the South Adams School, which that is my district, and I understand it, but I'm just not comfortable with it because where does that lead us down the road?
I understand. I understand that.
But believe me, I appreciate and love your commitment to the community. South Adams, every bit as vital to that community, as Adams Central is to the Monroe community, and North Adams is to the Decatur community. And the collaboration we have to be able to count on, I think is really important for our districts. And we are blessed to have 3 great public school systems in our county. And that's the reason that I moved my family back to Adams County and to be here. And so I hope you don't take this as anything against
No.
South Adams at all.
I am, fully, when we talk about, a place, I mean, you're 100% right. Our schools are exactly, and we
They're the
will
hub.
continue to, we will continue to pursue ways to make this a place where people want to come live.
Yeah.
And looking at quality of life studies, because of our location in Southern Adams County, what we do on our campus is going to make or break whether people choose to come to Southern Adams County. So we're going to continue to pursue these types of improvements, and we may ask again at some point because we feel like it is such a community, a unity piece that we do together. And I completely understand where you're coming from, and I just appreciate the opportunity and to have the conversations. So,
Well, and I've got family that works down there. They have nothing but good to say about your leadership.
oh, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate
So-
that.
So, yeah, that's always much appreciated. And just to have you as a strong leader and a strong advocate for your kids and your employees, I think is a wonderful benefit
We're an
for
amazing family
Southern
there.
Adams County.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do what you love.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sheriff, you got a comment?
Just a question, I was confused, were they asking, is it 80 for the pickleball court or is it for the pavilion?
Pavilion.
Okay, there's a lot of talk about pickleball court and that's what got me confused. The
Yeah.
pavilion was what the money's gonna be used
Yeah,
for.
pickleball courts are part of our.
Okay, that's what I said, I was just confused between the two.
Yeah, Mike?
One question is that you brought up drainage.
Yeah.
Is this adding more hard surface to your facility? Are you building this on a place up the grass?
It is, no, it is, yes, this will be more hard surface.
More hard
Yes,
surface, so
yes.
does it meet drainage requirements?
Yes, we knew this was something that we wanted to, like, forward thinking, we knew what needed to be where, so all of that's been considered. Yeah. So we did the all the infrastructure there.
Okay. Any other comments on that? If not, if you guys want to take action, then we can take action.
I would make a motion not to approve South Adams' request for the $80,000 for the pickleball court pavilion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks for your presentation. I appreciate that and
Thank
keep
you.
up the good work. And you need to tell us whether Tony was a good tennis coach or not.
She wasn't there yet.
I wasn't there yet. I think until, right, I think right, we just crossed a year or so.
You came not long after I left. Yep.
I did hear you guys ask me about the turf, whether it was gonna be finished, by the way, when I walked in.
Yes.
And, it is actually finished. They're grooming now, and we have turf orientation tomorrow.
All right.
Which is how to groom the field and some other things, and then doing the asphalt around the track. And the cedars are there, all the drainage is being, there's a word for it, made pretty. I mean, around, so.
So do you have a target date for when your first activity will take place on the turf?
We're hopeful to have girls soccer senior night on the 28th.
Cool.
And right now, there's no barriers to that we're aware of whatsoever. Then we'll play our first football game on the 29th, and middle school will get to play the next week. And
Cool.
so,
Good deal.
and baseball is morning track for soccer, for softball and baseball are in. And so it's,
We're looking forward to having another nice surface in the county that we can count on being there when the weathers the rest of us all out.
No more broken water lines in the school.
And tennis court update, we did have our bids came in this week. We'll be awarding a bid by the end of the week, and we'll probably have new tennis courts by Thanksgiving. So that's exciting.
Good deal.
Very
Fun stuff.
good.
You know, you guys have played on Adams Central several games this year.
Wonderful of them.
And,
too, yes.
So Friday night's gonna be more like a home game for South Adams almost,
That's
isn't it?
right. Let's get a little equalizer, not of the home court advantage, right?
Yep.
Okay, we
I
have,
think it's neat to see the schools in the county, especially for a sport like football, share their facilities.
Everything. Football field, because wear and tear matters.
Now,
All right, moving on, let's look at a couple of the other requests. that we've
the
got.
$75,000 for Park and Rec. And
That's-
Jeremy had said that would be for mowing equipment.
I
that
sat
kind
in
of
here
thing.
during that budget presentation, and that certainly takes some pressure off of their budget going forward over the next several years. If we can get some of those longer-term assets paid for out of the ARPA funds, and I would make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Okay, motion carries to approve the 75,000 for the Parks and Rec.
And then the other is the surveyor truck and trailer that would be coming out of your budget to be paid by ARPA. Mike is here if you have any questions on that. That's something that Paul had put in 3 years ago,
I think it's 17 when he started.
or several years ago, he had put that in. I think at that time, it would have been more than enough with some cushion, but now with the prices the way they are, it's probably pretty close to. So that was in order to lower the budget and pay for that out of.
I'll make a motion that we pay that 160.
Second.
Okay, and then the only other one, the crisis center and the library, you guys had already approved, so theirs was the final. The only other one's going to be Shelley, and she's coming around 11 to discuss that with you.
Yeah, we'll wait till she gets here to discuss that.
But that's all that I had on that deal.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Did you have anything else then at all?
That was all I had.
All right, Brad, did you have anything? Dumb question?
Ruh-roh, I don't like that laugh.
No, I would,
That was like-
I always have something, but today should not be bad. Just a couple things. So, this is more informative than anything today. If you remember back in March, the Oakwoods Sewer District got done. They went in, that all tore up. And you guys have basically given us permission to agree to pay for a share of it they weren't gonna be able to cover to have Oakwoods totally repaved. Well, the water main project is almost finished to a point where they should have started yesterday, and they're on the streets. They think it's gonna take about 3 weeks to tear it out, pack it in, and get it back in. So that's just an update.
So is the contractor actually repairing and repaving the streets?
Yeah, they're tearing everything out and
I
basically.
mean, that's nothing that you're
No,
I haven't.
no.
Okay,
Yeah, the sewer district's taking care of all that.
sure.
They've
Okay.
got the contractor and all that. And then the other thing, last week you gave us permission to go ahead and bid out the beds. And at that point, I don't remember if we told you we're planning on opening them October 10th. I can't remember if we gave you a date or not. So I just thought I'd give you a
Yeah,
little.
it was in the paper, but I didn't remember.
Okay, October 10th is when we plan on opening up the bids for the beds.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, other than that, business as usual, final round of mowing, getting closer to dirt vermin all the time. So
Okay,
that's it. Yeah.
very good.
Sure.
Yep.
Did Rick step out again?
Yes, he stepped out.
It's right there on top.
Oh, yeah. He's on the phone. Is he on the phone?
Hey, Rick, you're up, buddy.
All right. Morning, Rick.
A while back, we had shredding done. And I do have the bill here, and I put on there the fund and the account number that I'd like to pay it out of.
Thank you.
Motion approved.
Second.
All right, motion carries. Thanks for taking care of that. I know that's always extra work till you get a hold of all the offices and
Good project.
get everybody accommodated.
I've rid of a bunch this year.
I'll get around to the boxes out.
I like seeing all those empty boxes out there.
Hey, Stan, how much might that be? What is the amount?
It was $1,642.63.
63, okay, thank you.
Stan, I ran into Gene Blake. I think you spoke to him a little bit.
Yeah, this morning, yeah.
One of the things that needs to be done, Service Electric's pulling wires right now. They got all the conduit ran, so they're pulling wires. To hook up the hook it into the main breaker, we need to shut the power down. Okay. But they would like to do it, they proposed to me to do it Thursday, 21st. And we would do this at 3 a.m. And hopefully it would be back up between 5 and 6 before we ever conduct business. One of my questions to him is, I'm being the devil's advocate, what if something happens and it doesn't? If something would happen, it isn't the right, we'll just put it back just like it was, and we'll go from there. So it wouldn't interrupt business on Thursday. So I guess what I'm asking is it okay with you that we're gonna shut the power down at 3 a.m. and hopefully have it up by 5 or 6?
I'm not sure I like that word, hopefully. Yeah, but I think, in talking to Gene and walking through the process down there, I think as long as we have people here in case, as far as Bob, Ethan, and Mike, especially.
I know Bob's gonna be here for sure.
So if we have
I'll be
people on
here.
standby,
Gene will be here. I did talk to the parks because they open at 5. Again, but a potential heads up, this isn't truly approved, but the latest would probably be 6 a.m. Then you could probably open.
and Sheriff, so you're
So it'll be out all night.
aware.
No, we would turn it off at 3 a.m. in the morning and then try to have it back on by 5:36 a.m.
That's Friday morning, September 22nd.
That would be Thursday. Thursday.
Well, at 3 a.m. would be Friday.
Yeah, the 21st.
So it's
Thursday.
technically Friday morning at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
But people will be in this building, so security wise, there's somebody here,
I'll be here. Bob's gonna be here.
but workers will be in the building.
No. Not at
Well,
that time.
Somebody's gonna be here to do the work. That's what he's talking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
obviously, the alarms and stuff won't be functioning
Yeah.
because power's off, but we will have people in the building.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so from the server standpoint, I don't know if that's gonna affect you at the jail and dispatch or not.
Well, the other generator will kick on and it should run everything that we need to. And that was one of the components.
Yeah,
So the other generator will kick on, and that's what's gonna run what we have. Just like the health clinic, it'll run their cooling situation for their medication and everything should be okay. I mean,
so when you switch panels, the generator will bypass all that to power the health clinic, you're saying?
yeah. So it'd be just picture this, the power's gonna go out,
Sure,
okay? Say the power went out for whatever reason, that generator would kick on and run every circuit that it's supposed to. And that's how they're gonna do it down there. They're able to turn that breaker off.
so it'll keep all the
It'll keep
servers
all-
going
yeah.
and switches and routers and,
Yes,
gotcha,
yes.
okay. Yeah, I thought the power was gonna go out to them also. Okay,
And that'll be the same way, sometime in the hopefully near future. I mean, we may have to shut down a day to get all that hooked up when it comes down the alley. That generator will still be hooked up to function those things.
good. To me, that's the biggest thing. If everybody knows and you've got the people here in case something doesn't go right.
They're here, Gene will be here, I'm
Yeah.
here, Bob's gonna be here,
Yeah,
probably Mike.
okay. Very good.
With the date again was Friday morning.
Friday morning, 3 AM, right?
This Friday.
You guys
The
want to make a
22nd.
motion on that, approving him to do that, or?
Yeah.
That'd be the 22nd, not the 21st, correct?
It's 22nd.
Let me, here's what they proposed.
Thursday ends at midnight.
But they might be
There's
Thursday
an
morning.
email. Live from Gene.
Thursday morning, Wednesday.
No, Thursday morning.
Still be Tuesday morning. 3 AM.
Does anybody?
This sounds like it's Thursday at 3 AM.
Friday begins at midnight.
I
So
understand
it'd be
that.
Thursday,
We're a day off.
What's that?
So this in the 21st?
Correct.
Thursday, 9/21. It'd be the start time of 3 AM.
So it's Thursday morning at 3 AM.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Thursday, yeah. Because days.
That's confusing as hell.
Okay. So that way, when people come in to work Thursday, the power should be restored.
Yes.
Okay, now, it
this.
Yeah,
really has
why,
nothing to do with Friday.
why don't we, take a motion on that?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, all right.
Did you get that, Tony?
Yeah, once I read it, I got it. I was thinking it was, I think, Dan, you were thinking the same thing. I thought it was Thursday night, which would turn into Friday morning, but instead it's actually
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Now I got it. I just wanted to correct for the minutes.
Don't try and confuse us,
Like I
Tony.
said, the only business that should,
I was the
think
one
it
that
would
used that
be
night.
the parks.
Now I got it right.
Oh. Okay,
Might be on.
okay. Very good. Yeah, I was down there this morning. It looks like work's progressing pretty well
Yeah, it is. The
with Service Electric down there. And
powers, the pulling wires.
yeah, those are some big wires they're pulling.
Yeah, they are.
So,
We did.
yeah,
And they're the one that picked the date, so they should have it all pulled.
okay. All right.
Right.
Any other questions for Rick?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Rick.
Ed? Do you have anything?
I have no report. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
even better.
How about that?
yield my time.
That is worth reporting.
Senator Oklahoma.
That's a lot of papers for no report.
Well, I'm here in case you have any questions. On anything.
All right,
I can back up anything.
okay. Michelle, what did you have for us today? Or should I ask that? Yeah.
I brought a handout. You can grow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so in preparation for public transportation, things are still moving forward well with that. Just a little bit of an update on what I've been up to since I met with you guys last. I've been communicating back and forth with Todd from NDOT, as well as the drug and alcohol manager, Vicky, for NDOT. I went through the technical assistance review, which took weeks, but that's all the topics that it covers. They're very detailed. And then Todd and I had talked months ago about what rates we would charge for Adams County, and he says that NDOT kind of has a hands-off approach to that because different counties have different needs and populations. So I went ahead and I contacted 3 neighboring systems. The first one was Wells, has very similar demographic to ours, and you can see that they're different increments. Now, once we get into year 3, we will get some money from the federal government as well as state money that will help subsidize the costs to deliver these strips. On the back side, I actually visited LaGrange, and you can see theirs go more of an increment type system, depending on the mileage. And then out of the county, I think all 3 of the systems that I contacted only go out of the county for medical, which is what we currently do as well. Huntington, they use a map type system where they have a small circle, a larger circle. That didn't work well for me. So I put a lot of thought into it. I've been working on these for months. So below the yellow is kind of what I was thinking for Adams County. It kind of merges all 3 systems. And after talking to them, they all recommended, or at least the couple that I was actually able to talk to recommended not starting so low that it would be hard to increase it in the future. So I thought it would be fair to start with these for a couple years, see how they go. So I did kind of merge the LaGrange's system. I merged several of their increments. But I was thinking for Adams County for 0 to 9 miles would be $5 each way. 10 to 20 is 10, and 21 to 30 miles is 15. And when I was on GIS, from the northern to the southern end of Adams County is a little over 30 miles is what I had gotten off GIS, and it's 13 wide. So we very well could have a trip from one end of the county to the other. So that's why I included that increment. A medical trip, $1, which is less than what LaGrange charges. About $1 a mile up to 50 one way. That's our current service area anyways, is up to 50 miles one way. Children under the age of 12, if they're accompanied by an adult, the adult would pay their own rate, and then it would just be an extra $1 for the children. That way we're not getting bombarded with 1 paying adult and 5 free kids. At least we would get something for that.
Yeah.
And then if they're under 12 traveling alone, they would be charged the regular fare rate. So before I move forward with that, I wanted to see if you guys were okay with that. I did my due diligence researching it to see what I thought would be the best for Adams. These are very similar to what we currently charge. The difference between our service now and the one we're going to go to in January is for those that are under 60, that's an actual fare. And now we're at suggested donations. So they will be given whatever amount that their trip, whenever they book it, they will be given that amount, and they will know that that's what they need to pay each way.
Are there concerns about transporting children under 12 unaccompanied? Is that, you have to do that, or that's routine, or
That's what everyone else does,
I
right?
guess that puts a lot of
liability,
liability on your driver and responsibility on your driver to supervise a child,
right,
an unaccompanied child in your van.
right. So as far as, let's say that they need a car seat, it's the parent's responsibility to hook that up. And it would be the parent's responsibility to, I can't imagine them traveling alone with a car seat because they would need to unhook it. I know as well, but that, all three systems do.
Guess we'll figure that out as we go. won't we?
I know. They said absolutely do not have the driver hook up the car seat.
Yeah.
Which, as a mom, I would feel relieved knowing that it was secure, but I guess I'm just gonna have to do it. I would have to do it myself because I can't put that on my drivers because what if they're not used to hooking one up and then we have an accident? So I agree that that's a concern.
And this is as measured, the mileage is as measured from the point of pickup.
Yep.
So wherever
To
you,
their
to
destination.
their destination.
Yep. And on a side note, in 2022, when I took the expenses divided by the miles or by the trips, a one-way trip averaged the agency $37 one way. So any of these rates is still a hell of a deal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even now.
Right.
I mean, you're talking, $74 average for the round trip and they're maybe getting a round trip for 10. So I think it's a fair amount to start at. I mean, maybe we could revisit in a couple of years once we start getting the state of Indiana and more federal money, but
Are these numbers that coincide with the budget you put together in your
Yes.
initial presentation? Okay.
Yep.
And that budget was a budget that you were able to reconcile
yes,
to support the whole project?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, to me, I agree, they seem like very reasonable rates for someone that
yeah.
wants
And
transportation.
and if there's, let's say that there's a factory or a business that wants to supplement their workers, I mean, they could very well give a lump sum and we could pull out of that allotment
Gotcha.
to help pay for their employees to get back and forth to work. And I don't think that's
Yeah.
unreasonable. There are several agencies, businesses, factories in LaGrange that do that, same thing. And same thing with dialysis, that sort of thing. I mean, they
Yeah.
do very well, so I think they could support their riders if they needed assistance with their trip costs.
Certainly.
I think it's good that you grab LaGrange County as a comparable demographic. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out in Adams County.
I agree. I think it's gonna be the biggest blessing we've had in Adams County in years, but LaGrange, Sherry Perkins is the director for LaGrange, and she and I have been communicating back and forth a lot, and she's very wise. She has a good grasp on it.
Well, and I think when you're going into a project like this and setting rates or salaries or whatever it's been, one of the most pertinent things, I think, are these comps. When you look at other counties and you look at comps and say, okay, what's everybody else doing? What's our situation? How do we fit in? So I'm real comfortable with what you're presenting here, for sure.
And I've
So-
taken all three of their rider guides as well, and I'm merging them into ours so that we're all very consistent, in the northern.
Yeah. 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 So I don't know if you need any specific action on this
I
today.
don't think so, as
don't
long as
know
you, I can say that I've spoken to you guys and you guys are okay
Yeah.
with it, I'm okay with that.
So, well, and on another subject with your building, hopefully we're moving along. Hopefully Mark Wynn's been a help to you in getting the design around and getting.
Yeah, it just came in double what I was originally thinking, so I'm gonna need to figure out how to finagle that.
Only double?
Only double.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and that's something that we can look at too, as far as your board and
Right.
stuff, and see what we need to do. But
For that.
I think from my part, I'm intending to continue to support you through CETA funds and
Absolutely.
that's
I
my,
appreciate that.
I do have one question here, Michelle, on this medical trip from Adams County to Wells or Allen, $1 a mile, up to 50 miles one way. I know there is Amish in the southern part of the county that use Van Wert a lot. Are we going to transport over there?
We haven't.
We have,
We
okay, I
haven't.
didn't
Because
know
we
if that
did
was
get
gonna.
requests for Jay County as well. I guess in the past, in the last 50 years, we've only gone to Wells and Allen, so that's something to think about.
I just wanted to bring
I don't think I'm looking to expand it at this
Okay.
point, but we can see how things go and see how we're able to serve it. Yeah, we do get calls quite a bit for Jay County, and it's like, to tie up a vehicle for that length of a distance is just tricky.
Okay.
Then there's a lot of people that I can't serve that are here.
So the expectation as I read this, then the only trips outside of Adams County would be for medical trips.
And that's currently how it is.
Good, good deal.
That's why I was curious.
To me, that takes precedence over, we had someone want us to take them to go out to eat. I'm like, that's not a priority to me over being able to serve 12 people here versus one to go to Logan's or something, it's just.
But yet, when you go to the 5311 program, you'll have to decide based on when the call comes into your dispatch, correct?
Absolutely. But I still won't go out of the county for
Right,
a non-medical. So,
I see, gotcha. Yeah,
all right,
Good.
thank you.
very good. Thanks for all your work, Michelle.
I'm gonna close.
When it's here, but Dan just asked me to come outside to talk. So
Shelley, did you want to come up?
Not really.
Shelley, get up there.
you want Brad to come up?
Talk this to death. I think everybody's kind of like bored with it by now, I'm sure.
Talking about $500,000 is hard to get me bored, Shelley.
Okay, that's good. I like to hear that, Steve. So,
I was just sitting up there scanning the audience.
why is it?
Layers, I didn't know that.
We could go over what Steve Bailey had some concerns and questions that he emailed me. I read my very lengthy email. Hopefully that covered a lot of aspect of it.
Good.
Okay. So everybody understands what this record preservation by digitizing is. So I'll go over some stuff here, and I'm going to read, if it's okay if I read what I had wrote. So currently records located at the Burn, the Farmers F&M Bank basement are the older trifold and old order books. These records start around the 1800s and proceed to the 1970s. However, when these records files were stored, they were split by year, as some going to Burn and some staying at the courthouse. So in the courthouse, there's 4 different locations in our basement that we have to locate a record. When we receive a request for an older record located at Burn, about 3 or 4 times a month, it just depends on what it is. We drive to the location, make sure a teller is present because it is their building. We proceed downstairs in the basement and try to locate the trifold to review the order book associated with the record, which means if we are looking for the trifold record, they weren't always orders with the trifold, so you have to pull the book to match with that, whatever the order had granted on that, say, petition or motion. We pull both records in order for the request to be completed. The books, as well as some of the trifolds, are located on the top shelf, which makes it difficult for me and Jane here, my chief deputy, to pull sometimes. Once we have both of these physical records, we bring to the requested party back to our office. However, if they are only searching the document and do not want a copy nor a certified copy, there is no charge because the clerk can only charge for copies. Therefore, mileage costs the county and also time to retrieve the record from Burn. I am searching ways when these records are scanned, which they are the historical, which I'll get to, I can move them closer to home, basically, closer to here, that we have to retain them permanently. Hopefully somewhere here in the annex if we can find some room. My goal is to have these records and books grouped together instead of so many split. So with regard to retaining the records, I had the Indiana State Archives and Records Representative Tom Jones review our clerk's records. Due to historical value, books and trifolds should be retained after scanning and digitizing them. However, there's some 1990 order books were replaced as judgment and orders, which can be scanned and then destroyed. Any books before 1851 can be transferred to the state, but they're building a new building themselves. So this would be like a 2-year wait. And if we really want to decide to move any of our historical books down there, it'll be another, where is it? It's down there, or is it here? That kind of a thing. So basically, after the older trifolded books will be maintained in a space, they will be digitized for easier search, review, and if needed, a printed copy. This will be a time saver for the clerk's office as well as the public. Now, you can understand these are just older records. Now, cases from 1990s to present are being reviewed by the clerk's staff. Case files, records are now in an Odyssey state system, so that anything new from like, I say the 2000s to now are in our Odyssey state system. They're electronically filed, it's electronic digitized form. So there's no physical file after 2018. With that, we had a lot of physical files in our office that the staff reviewed and were able to make sure the completed record was in Odyssey, and they were able to destroy this record, this physical record, because it was already electronically in our form. We had about 60 boxes destroyed, purged already from that. The reason a lot of this I have been looking for it is a miracle that we have not been destroyed by fire, flood, or any other disaster. If a record is lost, there's no way to replicate that record. So I'm continuing to spend more time on this project, finding my due diligence. I have actually interviewed 4 vendors. I already eliminated one to find the best way that would be the best for our county to scan. So I had asked any commissioners or council to come to the office to have me fully explain, which I did have a councilman last week. He asked, because I went over some of the vendors, I put them into specs. There's more and more, I think as I'm going through with their specs, I'm eliminating towards what would be better for our county. Yes, it is a hefty amount, but they don't even cover one vendor's amount to scan everything that we would need scanned. I may have to relook and see what I need to do, what would be prioritized in order to get, if I get approved for the 500,000, to rearrange some things. So basically what I would like, if we have to have the permanent records from Bern, we need them moved. It has been more of a hassle to get there, especially after finding out that they need us to be, somebody has to be present there. I don't know how they got them down there. There is no elevator. It's a stairwell that does this to get down to the basement. We should have that in a better spot closer to us so that it's able to be pulled and have retained. But I do want them preserved. So this is kind of having to figure out, once they are scanned, I do not want them relocated back there. We have to find a spot here too. So these are another logistics I'm trying to find out what would be the best thing to have here. So vendors, I'm still working with IT. We're going to discuss. Every vendor has been real helpful in trying to get the specifications that we're asking. But it's still like who is the best one? That's the thing. Who is going to be the best vendor to actually tackle this project? And I'm leaning towards one, and I think some others are leaning towards the same one. Actually, if this one vendor, if I so choose, they would give us software for 2 years free, meaning we can use their software after they scan. Until our own software is up and running, as you know, I think Mike went into it a little bit, they have to create, which is the PRISM software, we use DocRecord for a lot of our claims, that they have to do an index. They have to program an index. But if our vendor has already indexed that document, it makes it a lot easier when we're putting into the software that we currently have here in the county. But that software needs to get that done before 2 years. And actually, the councilman said then they should start paying, our monthly maintenance if we still have it on their software. So there's a lot of things I still have to go with these vendors, but I'm very more confident after going through everything, speaking with Mike, speaking with the vendors. I know it's not easy, but it has to be done. It's been way overdue that it hasn't. And I said, it's going to be easier for the staff. It's going to be easier for the public.
I guess my struggle, Shelley, with it is we have to continue to maintain the records. And if we have to continue to maintain the records anyway, it's such a big expenditure, but yet we still have to find a space or build a space or include a space in whatever new courthouse or new judicial system that might be in the offing over the next few years. We would have to have a space to store these records regardless of whether we spend $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it's going to take to digitize these things. So what we're talking about then is, number one, records preservation, if there would be a fire, flood, or whatever. And number two is convenience. $500,000 buys a lot of time, a lot of resource, as far as if you didn't have to go to burn, you just had to walk down the hallway and spend some time looking through those records to find the 2 or 3 times a month or 4 times a month you said you might have to access these older records. We're just talking about such a big amount of money for a system that I don't have a lot of confidence in 10 years from now is going to be, we're going to look back and say, gosh, aren't we glad we did that? Those records are so easy to find.
And they will always be, because Steve, the Odyssey system is a PDF as well. So I understand you have a concern about it. We scan. If a pro se litigant comes in, we still have to scan it into that system, that electronic filing system. It's PDF. PDF is not going to go away. It's going to stay here.
But
So
can you
it's gonna-
find it? That's the issue.
Yeah. Yes, because it'll be under the indexed part of it. That's the thing. That's why it's a little more expensive, because the document's not only just getting scanned, but it's getting scanned and indexed to be able to be searchable, so that you can search that record from that software to pull it up for that person that's requesting. So that's going to be the thing that it helps me. I understand, because I had to do it myself at a law firm. I had to do this. It was needed for a huge client that we had. It made it a lot easier. Yes, human error. I'm scanning into the copier. We don't want that. We want to use a company that we are relying on that's going to provide us that service to have that, because they will back it with either a warranty or double check to make sure that they have that record that we have asked for is in there.
Well, I've sat through all 4 interviews with all 4 vendors myself, and that was a huge part of the interview was, how are you going to index? How many fields are you going to allow us to index? What software are we going to use to be able to index, and how will that integrate with Doc Record? So that was always a very integral part of the whole process. And obviously with all the people that we've got quotes from, this money wouldn't even scan half of what we need to scan. So you would have to prioritize. But, when you talk about preservation of records that we're statutorily required to preserve, that this is an option that preserves them in spite of fire, flood, or whatever. But it increases the searchability not only for you, but for anybody that's coming online, to search. And as far as convenience, it would allow us to destroy some records,
Yes.
right? But not all of the
It's
records,
just the
but
historical ones we would have to retain.
it would allow us.
The books.
So would we have to keep,
1,800 trifolds.
would we have to keep the trifolds too?
If we look at one, say every case is by a retention schedule, which you know what that is. So when we look at a record, a court record, there's a certain lifeline on that thing. So if, we've got it in digital form, there's really no need to have it. Like even the ones that are active right now, we just did the purge, a lot of them were active. They were active physical file, but the full complete case was in the Odyssey system. So we didn't have to retain the physical file. So even the ones downstairs in the basement, which are like the 1990s, 80s, 70s, due to the retention of what that case type is, we can destroy that physical record.
So can you destroy it even if it's not digitized?
Only if you kept a sample of it. So if there was no file for that, say if we had physically destroyed that, you have to retain a certain amount, like, I'll use an example. It's easier because I did this, small claims. There was a sample that you had to retain after the retention schedule. So if this small claims suit was released, their judgment, you had to retain the CCS, which is a chronological summary of that case, the notice of claim that was actually filed under the complaint, and the actual release itself. So you kept that. That's actually the old retention schedule for before electronic, is you had to keep a certain amount of that record. So there was, I mean, we're actually cleaning that out right now because that was what was still done when we still had, we had electronic. So I started it, and then, I'm working my way with my staff. Let's get rid of this because it's not needed. It's not needed because it's in the OSI system. So we are doing cleanup big time. I mean, my staff has been kicking it, trying to get the most current stuff so that we have space. So I'm trying to move things, thinking and what we need to do, because as I said, because in the basement of the courthouse, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5 different spots of all these records, and they need to be all together, I think.
Well, and I agree with that. I think that's on us to figure out a way to consolidate all those records, have them accessible to you, have them so that you aren't traveling, spending a half an hour, 45 minutes on the road to dig up an old record. I'm struggling with spending $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it's going to take to digitize these records if we still have to construct or find or create a fireproof place for them to be housed.
Well, it'd be more of the books. The books are the heaviest things. And that's going to be what I've been trying to discuss with certain people, like it'd be on the first floor thing, you don't want to put it second floor and come on down. Because the books have to be preserved. I mean, they have to preserve, but also they have to be kept. We have to keep the physical file or physical book. And so that's going to be the thing as far as those are concerned. Now, I said RGOs was what was changed. The orders went to RGOs, which are the records of judgments and orders, which we could, after they're scanned, they can be purged. Fortunately, with all the older books, we have quite a few. We do have quite a few older books. So I was trying to just, like, how many feet? I probably need 1,000 square feet to hold what would be needed. Like back in the day, like if you go back to the first records of the trifolds, they're like the 1800s. They're in a metal box. They're all in this metal box. I still would have to keep those metal box, to have as well and keep them all together, because some I have at the courthouse and some are at Burn. So it'd be kind of nice to have all those together as well. But if you open up a trifold, they're crumbling.
Sure. Yeah, I understand.
So.
Well, at some point, it's going to be up to us. Council's already approved this request to either also approve it, to table it, or to deny it. So I guess at this point, I guess I'd ask, what kind of action you'd like to take on this request.
Steve, what are your thoughts?
I have $500,000 is a lot of money for 3 or 4 times a week or a month. I know I came over and visited with you in your office.
It's not,
Do we
it's
have
not
to
the
move-
time of that. It's the preserving of the
Right.
record in this game.
Do we have to move all those records out of Geneva and bring them here and get them?
It would be nice to have them over here. As I said, if they're scanned,
To digitize them, we have to bring all them over here.
no. Actually, a vendor would go directly to the bank and they would actually what they would do, they would pull out the drawer, take the files, make sure they note what they're putting in a box, banker's box basically, and they would scan it. So if we ever had a request, we would contact them and they would be able to pull that record right away. Thing of it is, when they come back, they're not putting them back in the filing cabinets or the boxes. It's on.
So they would take the records with them.
Yes, they would go to their facility to scan. Now, this project's not going to be overnight either. It's going to probably take 2 years to get records completed of scanning.
I know you said 2 years could stay on their use. What's our cost after 2 years?
That's good. If I'm looking at the one vendor, because everybody had a different software maintenance plan. They all agreed to give, it'd be $8,400 a year for software. That's a lot for software. But that's cheaper compared to some others. But everybody agreed. I went back to them. I said, hey, if we go with you, would you give us some software at least for a year so that our software company, Prism, would be on board to get indexed? They said yes.
Well, like the last one, SC that we talked to, they would give us 2 years free on their software, their indexing software. And hopefully during that time, we could build a bridge to doc record. And I don't know what all that takes
I don't either. It's
to
a
where
coding.
we could index through our own document management plan or document management software.
Right. It would be nice to have it all in doc record. I mean, that's what the software we do have here in the county.
Yeah.
It's just that if they've, I guess, got a lot of fire in them, I guess, to get things going or whatever, but 2 years seems an ample amount of time for them to get an index software up and running for these records.
I feel that there may be a little bit of, not for sure what we should do here as commissioners, and I would like for you to come back with us in about 2 weeks. That way we can talk amongst ourselves and just, and, you know, maybe research it a little bit more. That's my opinion.
Okay. All right. So if.
I'm
Do
not,
you want a vendor or do you, I don't know what else to say.
if a motion will be out here right now, I couldn't second it. I would have to abstain from anything. And I don't think Steve's gonna make the motion. So if we don't do anything but table it, it dies today. So I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt by tabling it. And that's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, and like, you know, from Shelley's standpoint, what else is there that we need to make a decision? I mean, would more time give us that opportunity to research, or is it kicking the can down the road? So I guess I wouldn't mind, you know, having an action one way or another for her benefit, so she knows, and I'm not asking you to deny it, but, you know, at some point, you know, we have to say yes or no. And if we do table it, you know, what kind of things are we expecting to come across in the future that would help us make a better decision? So you know, if we approve it, we approve it. If we deny it, we deny it. But if we table it, there probably would be some specific things that we would ask to help us make a decision down the road.
If I were to make a motion, it probably would be a motion not to approve the ARPA funding for $500,000 for the scanning project. But part of that thinking, part of that strategy would be, but we need a better archiving system for the records, especially the records that are kept off-site. So my second challenge to that would be then back to Rick or back to somebody to say, we need to find Shelley 1,000 square feet somewhere, either today or have a plan to develop 1,000 square feet, or we can appropriately house these records and have them accessible to the clerk's office, not stored in the other end of the county, which I think is kind of crazy. But I'm struggling getting to $500,000 to digitize records that we have to keep anyway. That's the bottom line for me.
Well, if I can add to that, I would probably be able to eliminate everything in the basement of the courthouse. If it's digitized, the majority of those in the basement of the courthouse would be, you know, destroyed. That space right there. But I don't want to put, let's go from one to the other as far as putting burn back into, I mean, we could, but we'd have to clean out that dungeon, that's what we called it. If you look at the specifications that I asked the vendors to label each area, we have the shack, the dungeon, main basement in Bern. It's just the ones in Bern is what's the historical quality that we would have to keep the books and try
How often do you access the records that are in the basement?
quite a bit. And they're all kind of different. Some, we do have trifolds down there. We have the books, some of the books down there. We have one, they went into card system. It's a
Now, are we
card to
talking
the
the
box.
basement of, okay,
Yes.
okay.
You start getting into your legal size file folders, and then you went down to your letter size file folders. So there's so many different cabinets down there, all different sizes, and, you know, to store all this. But yeah, it's quite a bit because of the number one thing that's usually asked is, I need my divorce decree. I think it was back in 1972, or, you know what I mean? It's trying to find that for that. Or I need something else for my, you know, guardianship case or my adoption case, not that I'm, you know. That kind of
If you were to prioritize on what's the most important, if we would prioritize on the issue of preservation, we would look at what is the highest risk of loss due to flood, fire, hurricane, tornado, whatever, earthquake.
Everything would be lost.
And if we would prioritize on searchability as far as the information that's most often searched and is most convenient to search. And if we would prioritize based on records that could be destroyed based on being digitized, would that help us look at this in the light of prioritizing? It's not just, okay, here's $500,000, start at the top and work down. It's a matter of prioritizing with risk of loss, searchability and convenience, and destroying records that we're now storing. If we use those three elements to help us prioritize on what needed to be scanned, where would that bring us as in terms of a dollar amount? Would it still bring us to the $500,000?
Yes, because the higher end is those trifolds. And if the vendors, and it would be all vendors would say this, it's, you have to lay them flat, especially how they've been folded for so many years, to get them to lay flat to scan.
So you're talking about
So that's-
historical preservation records. If you prioritize based upon your need to access, and the ability to destroy the documents once they're digitized, where does that put us? Leave the archival, historical preservation
Outside.
crap outside. Let's talk about function, how you can best function. Prioritize that way,
Well,
just in your head.
my chief deputy actually and I had a discussion because we were thinking about, you know, how do we do this? If we do not do the historical ones first, but those are the most ones that are outside. If we did the ones downstairs, we would go backwards so that,
So you could work from most recent to most.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
we would do like, because that's where I kind of cut off with the vendors, because the 1991s, once we have, as I said, the software in place, our office would be able to scan those because it's already set and ready to go for the 90s, because then they can complete that record. Because it is a file folder full of pleadings, they would be able to put that in the system, so I wouldn't need a vendor to scan those. So I went to 1980 as a stopping point for these vendors. So in the 80s and back is what we would have. So the dungeon would have, except that, I say the dungeon, 80s and back to the 70s is basically what I would have a vendor accomplish down there.
So if we scan those, then could we destroy those records because they're not historical or whatever?
You know what, we probably would be able to, even though I would look at the retention just to make sure, but yeah, we would be able to.
I
So
like
like
where
we
this
would-
discussion is going, and this would help me get to where
So-
I think
so
you
like
want to go.
These books right here that go back to 1836. I don't care if we scan those or not. If I want to look at them, I'll come
They're
over
right
here,
there.
open the door, they're right
Yeah,
there.
they're pretty, they're neat.
But those records that are down in the basement, that are getting moldy, that are getting musty, that are in the dungeon, the records that are down in Geneva in the basement of those are records that either need to be moved out of there into a different environment or scanned and moved out of there. So, that's why I'm looking at, what's the most highest risk of loss? What's going to increase our searchability and convenience for you and the public? And what's going to help us destroy paper records so we don't need to store so much?
Right.
Those are the three things that I think make this a convincing argument to store. So, that's my thought on what's a priority. And I think you have the knowledge and the experience to prioritize and make good decisions on what, why, and how to scan. So, and I look at our responsibility as far as county government is maintaining records, and this gives us a very viable way to maintain and index these records, I think. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of how I see it as far as making things better, as far as what we're doing as a government.
Shelley, if we didn't have this ARPA funds, would you be coming to us for this $500,000?
Well, I would have to be seeing how to justify getting us going, because it's a need. It really is. We have to have these records preserved, and I'm just afraid something's going to happen. I hate to say that, but it's just that I was actually at a conference, and I was sitting next to a clerk, and her stomach just went flood. I mean, basically somebody had left a faucet on and it dripped down and destroyed a lot of these records. That's an added cost. So now, not only if you could try to, what is it? Mike, you had to have it done after the tree hit your house and the company had DD.
They freeze dry it and paperwork
Yeah.
to restore it.
To restore that type of a record. I hate to have that as a cost if something happens.
Well, that could never happen in our courthouse.
So that's why I would have been asking something or trying to figure this out without having that additional.
I guess to me, if those things are accomplished, I mean, we've used this money, and that's a very good question. What would we do if we didn't have this money?
Right.
Well, we've used this money to improve our WebEx system. We've used it to improve our HVAC system. Our power room and generator system. We've used it for the infrastructure that our government runs on in the county. And to me, this is another improvement to improve the services of what the things we are responsible for. So, and if it's a viable thing, you know how to do it, you know when to do it, you know what to do, and you can prioritize according to what our responsibilities are. I can't make a motion, but I can speak in favor of the project, I guess.
I started this about a year ago.
That's the other thing. I would say you have done more due diligence on this project with the vendors you have interviewed and the detail you have asked for in quotes, in methods, in the ongoing responsibility. I mean, you put a lot of time and work into this project because you think it's important. So,
Shelley, to me, I don't want to get involved in the vendor selection. That's up to you. And as long as Mike says it'll work, you guys need to figure that out. To me, it's a matter of practicality of whether it's a good use of our money. I like to spend county money. I would spend my own money. Would I spend my own money to preserve records that I only access once a month, that I have to preserve anyway, just to be a little more convenient to me? No, I wouldn't spend my own money that way. I'd suck it up and go through the records, and if I had to put a gas mask on to go down in the basement because of the mold, I would do that. I don't expect you to do that. I expect you to have a place where your records are kept that is clean and safe and secure, hopefully free from fire, certainly free from somebody leaving a water faucet on that floods the whole room. I think we need to do better at putting those records in a place where they would be preserved. But if you could bring to me an argument that says for $500,000, we can, well, all the records we're going to archive, we're going to be able to destroy, or for the most of them, we're going to be able to destroy. We access them regularly. It takes us a long time to go get them. You know, I haven't heard a convincing argument yet that would make me spend my own money to do this. That's where I'm at with it.
Well, I was going to say, next time I get a records request. We actually had some difficulty, you know, like going down there to in Bern, trying to find the actual record itself. And these are a lot of genealogy. They want these 18, the 19.
And you know, that's great, Shelley, but to be quite honest with you, don't care. I get it that we have records that people would like to have access to. If those records burnt tomorrow, nobody would lose money because of it. Nobody would have a court case that would be inconvenienced because of it or thrown out because of it. For those kind of, you know, I'm help me figure out why we're going to spend $500,000 to do this. And
Okay.
I'm not there yet.
Mike?
If I could say something, I've been accessing them records from land title since 1977 when I started with Sensor Offices. There's been, how many clerks have we had in that time? Many. And most of them treated it like trash. The amount of time you need to find it, it doesn't matter. If you need a record, you need it maybe once a year for me. But the value of that is invaluable. You can't put a price to it. This is the first clerk that's ever had any inkling to preserve and improve it. You know, I went from, there used to be records, I don't know, they still down in the boiler room in the basement. They were down with the boilers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then they moved them over to the jail, into the old shooting range, which was really bad to access or to find anything in the quality of it. I think anything we can do to preserve or index it has to be done, because that there's just one chain of title can be fixed by a probate record of a state. I pulled up commissioner's partitions out of there that would be lost. Value-wise, time-wise, is immaterial. It has to be done.
As I said, Shelley, I'm going to make a motion to decline your request, but at the same time, I'm going to take a mission to find a better place for you to house those records. And I don't know where that is. I would hope that it's maybe in a different facility. But I'm going to make a motion to deny the ARPA request. And I don't know whether it's going to get a second or not.
I can't second it.
Yeah, I'm not going to second that request.
I'm
Or that motion.
I'm not for sure.
People.
I got killed by
That
snake.
motion's going to die for the lack of a second, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
I'm putting a lot of sweat, blood, and tears in this. That's the only reason I am doing this. I've started this because of the fact even as a person would look for a record coming off the street. I know you don't care, but I do. I care for that person that has to take the time. I don't get a recoupment as a clerk in that office for the time that's been spent to search for that record. If they don't want a copy or a certified, it's a lot. That's time there that's lost, or even money lost. That's the reason I guess maybe I put too much into that because of trying to assist the public. And that's why I've done my due diligence as much as I possibly can, so that all specs have been crossed off that I can understand with different vendors and everything else to try to get this done. And I value what Mike has just said, because it is something, until you're in it, you don't know it, maybe. So that's the thing why I was really expressed. And actually, when the $500,000 was approved, I was shocked by it. But that's actually one of the vendors that doesn't even cover for all the records to be scanned.
Well, and I think it's an interesting concept to think how you would spend your money and for your own responsibility. And I guess that's where I look at, you know, our responsibility a little differently, because we're not only responsible for the 36,000 county residents, we're responsible for the archive of those 36,000 residents. And whether it's for Mike as our plat book technician and surveyor, or whether it's for Clayton and in his research, or the title companies, those records are valuable, and we have records. That's our responsibility to maintain, not for you, not for you, not for you only, but for all the residents current and past of the county. And so I see that as one of county government's main responsibilities, because if we don't maintain those, nobody else will.
So,
So I guess at this time, if that Steve's motion has died, if there's no other motion, then, you know, there's no action taken on the request right now, so. So thanks for your diligence and thanks for your work that you brought to this project.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
All right. Mark Wynn.
Thanks, Mark.
First.
Okay, first thing I got is the monthly report. You can see that we are busy. Yeah, 57, biggest month we've had this year. And that put us up $600,000 for the previous month. Previous August, I should say.
Almost doubled the amount of permits from the previous August.
Yep. Can't believe the prices and interest rates were still there, but we are. So, I think I have 16 inspections on my calendar right now for today. I was actually
Get you out of
I was
here.
hoping this was an early one. They never are when I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
They're always late. This is how it works. Murphy's Law.
So we're still down a little bit, well, no, not for much.
A little bit for the total,
Right.
because we still had the big red gold project last year, so that kind of
Right.
obscures that bottom line
Yeah.
value.
Well, very good. Any questions on Mark's report?
Make a motion to put it in record.
Second.
Okay.
Pretty simple one today, one lot turned into 3. $400 west, 200 south on the corner. So it's got road access on 2 sides. Was one big rectangle, broke the buildings out. It's lot 1. And then they got this remainder that's lot 2. It's weird shape. It did. And then lot 3 is what's left.
Make a motion.
Second.
All right, very good.
This is acres.
How many acres is
Total? Yeah. The whole base, everything?
Yeah. Behind.
So we got basically 71, 7.9, 4.2, 5.
Is there sewer out there?
311, 380. Yep.
Is there sewer out there?
I just wondered if I don't have any, but.
Oh, I mean, it can be, but it's 5 acres. Yeah.
Question is, I started, but that's good.
I know you responded to me. Did you guys get my building?
I did, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
I don't know how that works. I don't know when you guys want to look at that or talk about
She was
that. or act on
complaining that
that.
you were twice what she thought it was gonna be, so other than that.
Well,
Yeah.
I tried to show all the things. When she gave it, like, you only have the price for a pole barn. And there was no, permits or drawings or electric or.
Yeah.
Her drawing showed a bathroom in the corner, so that's about 18 grand if you didn't have a bathroom. So
Yeah.
that'd be some savings.
Does that building require us to tear down that other small building?
Well, the drawing I was given showed the rectangle over the top of that building a little bit, so yes. I didn't have that, removal of the building,
Okay.
but, and on how much.
Looked good to me.
I think everything's,
Sweet
I
building.
think everything's pretty much there.
Yeah.
Bathroom's the only question I had for how important it was.
Well, I think it is important for that big of a building and for the drivers out there and so,
I don't care, I just didn't know.
Sure. yeah.
I'm just giving you the time, but plumber's gonna be a number. Fees for tap fee, just for a toilet. But not, it's what it is. But,
So,
yeah, if you guys want to, however that works, Michelle, I would call Dan Rissmiller, who is the engineer that could draw it.
okay,
That's the first thing that needs to happen, real drawing. Then I just take it back out.
You know,
Actually get multiple quotes.
even though we get paid, I
Those are things,
money is worth.
those are real numbers, but I could take it to 6 guys for electric drawing, so
Sure.
they'd all be kind of guesses.
does Arnold's do construction drawings? Do they? Or does Hauberger do construction drawings? Or I don't know who you're working with.
They do, but not, the one I was working with was, they're engineered, and that also included sent it to the state.
Oh,
So a lot of what they do isn't, they're just for you and me building in your backyard.
okay,
When it's state involved with engineering and stamp on it, all that fun stuff, you have to go, even though it's a garage, that's what's going to be required from Kirk Whitty. So that's why it's.
the other thing that we had talked about as commissioners was taking a new look at the Adams County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or discussion
We
on
are,
that, or-
we've been trying to kind of figure that out a little bit, and I think, Mark, what you're gonna be hearing from one of us as we begin to pull together kind of a group to begin to think about what that county vision plan or county land use plan or comprehensive plan or whatever you want to call it, what that's gonna look like. We'll be reaching out to you shortly and try to get a group together to just begin that discussion.
We'd like to have a meeting here within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I got
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Mark.
right. Thank you, Mark. All right.
Talk to that Lynn Burry if he was interested.
Good.
Clayton, did you have anything for us?
I do not.
Shannon?
We do, just a couple things.
Okay.
Just one thing, I would like to seek permission to backfill for opening in the sheriff's office as a deputy.
What's backfill?
Rehire, replace, sorry.
You had a deputy resign, is that correct?
You want permission to hire another one? So moved.
Thanks. That's it.
You said a few things.
Said a few things.
Yes, one's a few.
I guess
Very few, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from the general public? Yeah, that's recorded. All right,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right. Meeting adjourned.